CHBC verse of the day.
We come next to Matthew chapter 9 and verses 14 to 38. You've got three or four things there. You've got some questions about fasting that Jesus is asked, and explaining that Christianity, the good news, is brand new, won't fit into any old patterns. You've got the raising of a dead girl and the healing of a sick woman. And then you've got the healing of a blind and mute person. And then towards the end of that passage, Jesus speaks about the workers being few. And in verse 36, so this is Matthew 9:36, Matthew tells us, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Now Matthew draws attention then to the compassion of Jesus. We've seen it in action. In the passage, he raises a dead girl, he heals a bleeding woman, he makes a blind mute able to see and to hear. And those actions are not merely matters of power, whether it's good power or evil power for that matter, but it's rooted in a deep and a real compassion, a warm compassion, that reaches out not just to the sick and to the dead, but to all who are helpless and harassed. Jesus sees such people as though they were sheep without a shepherd then, leaderless, and he, the good shepherd, cares for them and invites them to come under his leadership. And we ought to be praying then that this message will go out to all. There are many people who feel helpless and harassed at the moment. They need the help of Jesus. So Matthew 9:36, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd.
CHBC verse of the day.
Our verses today are taken from the first 31 verses of Matthew chapter 10. The story of Matthew 10 is the sending out of the 12 disciples. They become apostles. They've been disciples and now they begin to be apostles. And I just want us to focus on verses 24 and the beginning of verse 25. There Jesus says to them, he says, "The student is not above the teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for students to be like their teachers, and servants like their masters." These verses speak of the relationship between students and teachers, servants and masters. Such words we appreciate when we consider the relationship between Jesus and his disciples. The main point that he's making here is that the student or servant, that is what they were, servants, students, he is not above his master. And so when Christ is abused, as he clearly was, verse 25 goes on to speak about him being called Beelzebul. And he says, how much more the members of his household will suffer such abuse. Well then, followers of Jesus can expect then to no such thing. It's not reasonable to suppose that we can follow Jesus and completely escape such treatment. There's bound to be a connection. And so here's a reminder then, if you are a Christian, to expect opposition, to expect persecution. If we expect to live with Christ, it's right that we also expect to die with Christ, if that's what it comes to. So that's Matthew chapter 10. Verse 24, the beginning of verse 25.